You will see, ladies and gentlemen, video of those last minutes.
In the year of 2022, Tampa, Florida would be hit with a tragedy.
You will hear how Ronnie Walker had been driving around looking for her and found her just blocks away from where he was living.
It would be then that 14-year-old Nilexia Alexander would become the sole focus of an investigation. And with little evidence, the discovery trail wouldn't be easy to navigate.
You will see these videos, and you will see Nilexia.
For 2 months, there would be a manhunt for information, and while the detectives worked, the city would mourn the sweetheart they never got to meet. In due time, justice would come, but it would come with a price. The fee for finding the truth would cost the city its peace of mind. This is the story of Nilexia Alexander.
Ladies and gentlemen, at the conclusion of this case, the state is convinced that you will make the right choice. Ladies and gentlemen, at the conclusion of this case, the state is convinced that you will make the right choice.
January 13th, 2008. The world would make way for Nilexia Alexander. Nilexia would be born in Brandon, Florida. However, upon birth, that would be the beginning of her troubles. After being carried for 9 months, her mother would choose to sign a set of papers. These papers would turn her over to the state. Now, as far as the reason as to why she put her daughter up for adoption, I can't say, but she did. For the first year and a half of her life, Nilexia was basically property of the state. Around the time when she hit 1.5 years old, things would change. That would be the age that she would receive her first foster mother. Now, normally, when an adult chooses to foster a child of this age, it's kind of like a pretrial. You keep the baby for a minute and you choose whether or not you want to adopt it, or you can choose to give it back. In her case, she was given back. But things didn't end there. For the next 4 months, she would be shipped between 4 separate foster homes with 4 separate foster mothers. Now, for whatever reason, none of them managed to make a connection with Nilexia. It seems as if things were in an endless cycle. She would be foster parented and then return until a turnaround would happen. Around the age of 2, Nilexia would meet Ashley Alexander. In the beginning process, she too was a foster parent, and she would keep her for the next 2 years. But this time, Nilexia wouldn't be returned. Her mother Ashley would decide to adopt her and finally give her a permanent home. Ashley would treat Nilexia as if she birthed her herself. This was her daughter, and you couldn't tell her any different. In her early years, Nilexia was sweet. She was funny. She was also someone who garnered the attention of her teachers. She enjoyed learning. From the outside looking in, she was your normal, goofy child. But she struggled with things. Her mother would explain that although she was too young to remember being foster parented, the trauma stuck with her. One day Nilexia did something to get in trouble, and when her mother got on to her, she began to tell her mother, "Please, don't send me back." In that moment, her mother would realize just how much being a foster child truly affected her. Just because you can't recollect a situation because you were too young doesn't mean it wasn't implanted into your subconscious. After all, the first few years of being born are the most crucial, the most detrimental, and for the first couple of years of her life, she was being given away. Being the loving mother that Ashley was, she would work with her through her trauma and try her best to help her get along. Now, for the next few years, things were okay. By the age of 12, Nilexia had begun to wonder about her biological parents, so her mother Ashley would go on Facebook, and guess what? She manages to find them. They set a date, and they agree to meet up in public. That way Nilexia could meet her birth parents. So it's Christmas, 2019. Nilexia is so elated. She had always wondered about her true parents, and this was the day. It was finally here. She was about to meet them. So Ashley and Nilexia would make their way to this restaurant, and they would sit there for a couple of hours. And ultimately, her biological parents were a no-show. To say that Nilexia was hurt is an understatement. She had always had questions of why they truly gave her away. But now she had another question. Why didn't they want to meet her? After that day, she was never the same. Immediately after being stood up by her biological parents, her behavior would change. She would begin getting into trouble, throwing tantrums, and even running away. She even began to turn on her foster mother. She began telling Ashley that, "You're not my real mother. I don't want to live here." But to make matters worse, Nilexia suffered from bipolar disorder. Her adoptive mother did the best she could to get her the help she needed. She was in and out of DCF programs. She was even enrolled in a special school, but it did little to help her behavior. For the next 2 years, it would only get worse. And by the time Nilexia was 14 years old, it would take a turn for the worse. Her mother would begin to realize that she was receiving messages on her phone from older men. And the running away, well, she was still doing it. Her mother can't even count on one hand how many times the police had to bring her home. In May of 2022, Nilexia Alexander would run away once more, but this time, she wouldn't be returning. May 6th, 2022. Around 4 a.m., the Tampa Police Department would be dispatched to Florabraska Avenue. At the time, they are responding to a call about shots being fired. When they arrive, they notice someone unresponsive laying in a field, about 6 feet away from the roadway. The victim was found with no identification and no personal belongings. Unable to identify the victim, they would release a picture later on that day, a picture of a distinctive tattoo. That same day, her adopted mother happened to be scrolling on news media, and she came across this picture. When she does, her heart drops, because she immediately knows that it's Nilexia. She would then have to take that sad trip down to the morgue and help identify the remains. The initial crime scene had little to no evidence. They found a few shell casings, but aside from that, nothing. For the next 2 months, they would work vigorously to find suspects, and the hard work would pay off. They would announce the arrest of Ronnie Walker, as well as another guy who goes by the name of Robert Creed.
Yesterday afternoon, the Tampa Police Department, the U.S. Marshals Task Force, arrested 44-year-old Ronell Walker. We have zero tolerance for gun crime, especially when it involves the life of a young juvenile in the city of Tampa. I want to thank our homicide squad. Those detectives worked tirelessly to bring this person to justice. As a parent, I know that this will never take away that deep sense of loss that Ashley and her family feel that their daughter will never come home to them again. As a police department, we hope this arrest provides some sense of closure for the family.
Tampa Police Department detectives, thank y'all. I thank you from the bottom of my heart. The community, the tips, I thank you all. I thank everyone who was able to bring this person to justice. I thank you. It won't bring my baby girl back, but it will give me some peace that he's off the streets and a little bit of closure. This is just the beginning. This is our beginning.
After the arrest, Ronnie Walker would be indicted on charges of murder. As for Robert Creed, he was charged with accessory after the fact. As far as the connection between Ronnie Walker and Robert Creed, they were lifelong friends. They had known each other since they were children. In the year of 2025, the trial would begin for Ronnie Walker. And when the trial began, that friendship would be put to the test, because Robert Creed would flip, and in hopes of receiving a lesser charge, he would turn state witness. It turns out that the night that Alexia lost her life, Robert Creed was present, and when interviewed by the authorities, he told it all, every single detail.
Morning. In May of 2022, 14-year-old Nilexia Alexander had run away from home. It wasn't her first time running away from home. She'd been struggling and acting as immaturely. And in that May of 2022, Nilexia made a decision that ultimately led to her death. Because on May the 6th of 2022, at around 3 a.m., Nilexia Alexander got in the car belonging to that man right there, Ronnie Walker. She'd been out on the streets. She'd been wandering around. She was in an apartment complex. And she gets picked up by Ronnie Walker.
The story now brings us back to May 6th of 2022 and what exactly transpired on that day. On that night, in the late night hours, Ronnie Walker had picked up Nilexia Alexander, who at the time was a runaway. She had been sleeping in parks and roaming around apartment complexes. When Nilexia was picked up in the car on that evening, in that car was Ronnie Walker and Robert Creed. Ronnie takes Nilexia to a convenience store and he buys her juice to drink. After leaving the convenience store, he then drives around with Nilexia in the car. They go through various neighborhoods, just driving in and out of streets. And then, around 3 a.m., he would take Nilexia to Florabraska Avenue. Now, this area is a dead end. It leads to nothing but a vacant field. He parks next to that vacant field and he cuts the car off. It's at this time that Robert Creed alleges that that's when Ronnie begins yelling at Nilexia. He says that Ronnie was screaming and shouting, asking Nilexia if she was seeing another guy. Robert alleges that he really wasn't paying too much attention to them, but then out of nowhere, he hears a shot. At this time, Nilexia would be hit in the shoulder region. Ronnie Walker then orders Nilexia to exit the vehicle. She exits and he follows behind her. They are now standing in a vacant field, and while Nilexia is walking forward, Ronnie would raise his weapon once more. He would then fire a total of 4 more times, with 3 of those striking Nilexia. Those projectiles would hit her in the head region. She then collapses and falls in the field. And then Ronnie Walker walks away. He goes back to his vehicle. He starts it up. And he drives away with the headlights off. Unbeknownst to him, he doesn't realize that Nilexia Alexander has left her phone inside of his vehicle, in the back seat of the car, as well as the drink that she was drinking. During the investigation, the authorities were able to track that phone. The phone would be tracked on that night going to a convenience store. And inside of that convenience store, Ronnie Walker would be captured on surveillance, as well as Robert Creed. The next day, the phone is still in the back seat. Ronnie has no idea. He drives his vehicle to a hospital, and at that hospital, they have license plate readers. They ran the license plate, and this is what gives them a name, Ronnie Walker. After identifying Ronnie, they attempt to arrest him, but he doesn't have an address on file, at least not one that he's at. They then cross-reference his license plate to see where the vehicle was purchased. This would lead them to a car lot. And guess what? When they get to this car lot, Ronnie Walker is present. He works there. He is immediately arrested, and his vehicle is towed for further processing. During the search, they would find blood in his vehicle. The DNA would be a direct match to Nilexia Alexander. In the end, it would be Nilexia that led the investigators to the suspects. The only question at hand now is why. And I want to be clear, everything that I have said up until this point is what the prosecution alleges. They believe the motive is that Ronnie believed that Nilexia had gave him an STD, that he then passed to his girlfriend. They believe that this officially outs this relationship that they had going on, so he got rid of the evidence. Robert Creed would plead guilty to accessory after the fact, while Ronnie Walker's trial is presently going on. But that's not where the story ends, because Ronnie Walker says he's innocent and that Robert Creed is the one who pulled the trigger. His defense team is arguing that he's basically been railroaded.
The facts and the evidence are going to show that this is a case where one man, and one man only, is responsible for Nilexia Alexander's death, and that is Robert Quincy Creed. As you heard from Mr. Terry, I expect that you will get to hear from Mr. Creed. And I'm going to go through some of the circumstances under which Mr. Creed is facing charges. And I'm going to go through a little bit of the investigation and touch on some of the points that the prosecution left out during their opening statement. So forgive me if you see and hear some of the same things, but I'm asking you to look at it from a different perspective. This name, Robert Creed, started coming up a lot in the investigation, so naturally, Detective Wieland, who is the lead detective in the case, I expect you will hear from him, he then starts to look into Mr. Creed. He interviews Mr. Creed, he pulls phone records for Mr. Creed, and when he pulls the phone records for Mr. Creed, it's not to be minimized. It's not that there was some phone calls between Mr. Creed and Nilexia Alexander. You're going to see the phone records, and you're going to see starting as back as far as April 29th, 2022, so we're talking just a couple of days before the shooting. There are multiple phone calls, multiple text messages between Mr. Creed and or Nilexia Alexander. Either he's calling her or she's calling him, or back and forth. And those phone contacts continue up until April 30th. And then after that, there's nothing else. But this is the connection that law enforcement was looking for. How did Nilexia Alexander end up in that black Ford? Well, now we know, because she was there to see Robert Creed. During the first interview, Robert Creed denies knowing Nilexia Alexander. When they confront Robert Creed with the phone records, Robert Creed says, "No, that's not true. That's not me. I don't know who this person is. I don't know anything about someone dying." The second time you hear that an interview is done with Mr. Creed, you're going to learn that at that point, the interview goes a little bit differently. Because what the evidence will show is that that interview starts off with the detective telling Mr. Creed, "If you don't tell me that someone else did this, we're going to have to charge you with murder." And from there on out, Robert Creed mimics, repeats what the detective had told him.
There's only 3 people who truly know what happened on that evening, and that's Ronnie Walker, his friend, Robert Creed, and Nilexia Alexander. Needless to say, Nilexia isn't here to tell her side of the story. Is this truly a case where Ronnie Walker did what he did to Nilexia because of what the prosecution team alleges? Or is this a case of Robert Creed throwing his best friend under the bus? I want to be clear. There is zero proof that Ronnie Walker ever texted or called Nilexia. The only person that they could trace back to Nilexia was Robert Creed. It was his phone that was messaging her. It was his phone in which the calls came from, which only leaves 2 scenarios. Either Ronnie Walker was using his best friend's phone to contact Nilexia, or the person who Nilexia truly knew in the car on that evening was Robert Creed. Will we ever find out the truth? I guess only time will tell, because as I said, Ronnie Walker is currently having his trial, and Robert Creed has already pleaded guilty to a lesser charge.
Our top story tonight, friends and family of a 14-year-old girl who was shot and killed in Tampa are now remembering the teenager taken way too soon.
Friends and her family now grieving after her life was stolen.
But I will keep on denying. Gotta keep my emotions running wild.
They released purple balloons as they pray for justice.
She's not here now to complete what God put her on earth to do.
It is very known
that the parents want their children to bury them. And we're just in a day now where parents is burying their children.
I'm in denial, I'm undercover. My heart is breaking, so I'm faking every smile. I'm in denial, I'm undercover. Wanna find a place to rest, be human for a while. Just be human for a while.
What happened to 14-year-old Nilexia Alexander is completely heartbreaking. Nilexia was only 14 years old and she had already gone through a lot. But to add insult to injury, Ronnie Walker shouldn't have been out on the streets in the first place. In 2003, Ronnie Walker was convicted of murder, and through a technicality, his conviction was overturned, and he was allowed to cop out to a plea deal where he only had to serve 5 years. He did his time, and he was released. In her final days, Nilexia was going through a lot. She was sad about her biological parents not truly wanting to meet her. She was also running away from home a lot. And sadly, the last time that she was found, it was too late. Nilexia Alexander would be cremated, and her ashes would be placed in an urn. That urn now sits in Ashley Alexander's living room. She never has to spend another night wondering where her daughter is, because she knows. Rest in peace, Nilexia Alexander. Thank you for being a light for others. I truly hope you receive the justice that you deserve.
I'm in denial, I'm undercover. My heart is breaking, so I'm faking every smile. I'm in denial, I'm undercover. Wanna find a place to rest, be human for a while. Just be